You're listening to the Abolitionist Round Table, patriotic Black American conservatism, with your hosts, Del, Phil, and Janice, leading the charge and advancing the 4%. Join in the conversation at 734-822-1600.
And we are back. And on our hotline is former Congressman Kerry Bentivolio. And I'm going to get right to it because I got a lot of questions I want to know from this source. Good morning, Congressman.
How are you? Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it is our pleasure to have you. Believe me, it is. I don't know how much of you heard of that last part there, but we played where you questioned Gruber.
Yes, I did. I got had a little trouble getting online, but I did hear that, the last half of that. Thank you very much for playing that.
Man, it was 4 minutes. It was good, too.
It was very impressive. It really was, and it shows what a true statesman should sound like. Mm-hmm. That's what all of the congressmen should be sounding like, Kerry, and I'm sure that's why you got
well, I had two good teachers, Jim Jordan and Trey Gowdy, are on that same committee. Yeah. And so it takes a while to get your, let's say, your sea legs in Congress, but at that point...
well, you had them on that particular... The one question that stands out to me is how it can... He didn't admit to taking the money because he kept saying he couldn't recall.
Yeah, he admitted to taking it. Actually, he received about $6 million.
Holy smoke.
And what's interesting, though, in that interview is he never once denied lying to the American public. Yeah. He said we had a model, so he skirted that issue. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he never once denied. When I asked him, I said, so how much... For defrauding the American people on Obamacare, how much did you make? $2 million, or with plus or minus $100,000, and he said he didn't know. And here's an economist with MIT. I think he's a PhD from Harvard, and he's an economist at MIT, and he can't even tell us how much his income was for shoving Obamacare down our throats.
Well, the question is also when you make mention of, he said that they modeled this, and it came up. Well, it's the same thing with global warming. That's what they use on global warming is modeling.
Yeah,
there's no hard evidence that can be proven by research that says that there's global warming. Just like there wasn't any practical research done on...
They switched that. It's no longer global warming, it's climate change.
Climate change,
right. That covers everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and it's another way of spending our tax dollars.
Well, it's another way of legally plundering the nation, quite frankly, because that's what the law has become, just like Frederick Bastiat said it would become or was becoming in France back in the 19th century. Law is supposed to protect liberty. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's used as legal plunder.
Yes.
Exactly right. And that's the problem with Michigan. And, there's an interesting thing that Bruce said, one of your callers earlier, I believe.
Yes.
Why would we pass a 2,000-page bill after we learned our lesson with Nancy Pelosi, who said you got to pass it before we can see what's in it? And the last time I heard that was from my doctor when he asked me for a stool sample. And in both cases, he got the same thing.
Oh, too funny.
I mean, seriously. And the other thing is on climate change. Getting back to that, I made a joke about, I know how we can fix climate change. Mm-hmm. And one way to do that is to take 16,000 of the EPA employees and send them to China for about 7 years. It'll improve their climate over there. It'll spur our economy, right? Mm-hmm. And they actually, I said that as a joke, and the Chinese ambassador called on me and asked me if that was possible.
Wow!
So, because you're going to die if you spend some time in some of their big cities.
Yes,
and
smog and
The smog is killing you.
Yes.
And it will kill you. In fact, it is killing people, and they're admitting that they have a problem now. So I thought maybe we can negotiate a deal where we'll send 16,000 EPA employees over there
and clear the air.
Seriously, so I guess their sense of humor in China is a lot different than our sense of humor here. But I get it, no problem.
But, so what do you? What is your overall thoughts on this budget? Did you have any nuggets? Because one thing that I was really concerned about was this visa waiver program, and the one that he vetoed. Actually, he put the threat of the veto out there, but then he allowed the visa waiver program to go through and put it into the omnibus budget. Now, that particular piece of legislation was so that they could distinguish between people from Iraq, Syria, and places like that, and not allow them to use that system if there were certain criteria that they met. So, all of these other things, they keep saying that if you want to distinguish between the Muslims, that was racist, that was xenophobic, and all other things. But they put this bill in there, and it clearly distinguishes the people coming out of Iraq and Syria.
Yes, it does. They have, and when you get into the visa program, I got a 3-inch binder just on visas, and the interesting thing to me was the omnibus spending bill allows more than 250,000 low-skilled foreign guest workers to enter the U.S. on an H-2B visa each year. And those jobs are going to fill the what low-income American workers and part-time students traditionally do. And it's allowing the foreigners to fill jobs to work in the construction industry, hotel, motel services, as truck drivers, food processing, in forestry, and many other fields that don't require a college education. And the other interesting thing is the bill does nothing to stop the proliferation and restrict the funding of sanctuary cities, and that really concerns me.
Have you heard anything from? I believe what's the congressman name from Maryland with the bald head?
Chuck Conley. He's got a nice head of hair on him, though.
Anyway, his constituency is Black America, and what does he have to say about that? Because those jobs going to those foreigners are going to affect the jobs in the inner city, where the unemployment rate is already over 25%.
Exactly, and that's a sad thing, because traditionally the Democrat rank and file are going to stand behind their Democratic leaders come up hell or high water. And
you're talking about Elijah Cummings.
Elijah.
The Democrats, including unions. If you're a union guy and you support traditionally Democrats, I guess what?
Yeah.
You just got stuck.
Yes.
Because they're going to they just destroyed your future. And the sad part about that is they're not really going to see this until a year, 2 years down the road, and they won't blame it on this omnibus bill. They'll just, that's another problem we created.
Well, they'll blame it on George Bush.
Oh, yeah. The congressman that I was talking about was Elijah Cummings. Wasn't he on the same committee that you were on?
Yeah.
I believe he was, yes.
Yeah, and he,
I'd have to think about that, but I believe he was. Yes, he was the minority.
Ranking
minority chairman. Yes, I got it. Okay.
But
it takes a while to get back to me, but
he's very protective of his constituency, and yet still he allows this to come about.
Yes. Well, that's the hypocritical politicians in Washington, D.C.
Well, he's actually very protective of Hillary Clinton in the Benghazi trials,
too.
Yeah, and that's a sham. As a 27-year veteran speaking of Benghazi, as a 27-year veteran, one of the jobs I had was a battle staff NCO, and that's the guy who basically helps out and in the headquarters where the general is, and he controls the maps and he controls the incident reports and what's happening, and kind of filling in all the officers on what's happening on the battlefield. And so the key thing to do is to ask when you look for the facts and the truth about Benghazi, is to talk to those NCOs that normally aren't on the front lines when it comes to public speaking and public addresses, and get their information. And so you know that in my part of that investigation, talking to those NCOs, I found out that there were soldiers on the tarmac, if you will, fully dressed in battle gear, ready to go.
Yes.
And they were told to stand down.
Yes.
And that comes from higher up. Now, who in their right mind would issue an order like that? And I know that the typical soldier there, sometimes you got to just shut up and do your mission and follow orders. That's our job, right?
Yes.
But I know for a fact that they were, figuratively speaking, on the tarmac, fully dressed, ready to go, and they were told to stand down. And they could have been there within hours.
That particular piece of information, wasn't that just recently, not back when the hearings were going, but that particular information wasn't known at the time that they had Hillary in front of that committee, was it?
Yes,
it was.
But they had other agenda, and sometimes even your own side doesn't listen or won't. They have a different way of. Well, let's just put it this way. Some of it is for theater, and that's a shame.
Okay.
I didn't when I questioned Gruber, for instance, it wasn't about theater. I just wanted people to know that this Obamacare is a sham. And it's going to continue to be a sham. I mean, doctors are complaining, patients are complaining, and nobody wants to listen. And that's typical of Washington. They're not listening.
No.
One thing I take pride in that every single bill that I sponsored on the floor of Congress came from an idea from one of my constituents. In fact, one bill came from the bank teller. She offered an idea, and I said, "Hey, when's your next coffee break? Because I'd like to ask you some more questions."